people believe that autism is a disease. Some do believe, and that's a huge myth that I want to debunk today. Autism is not a disease that needs to be cured with a vitamin or be cured with a certain medicine. No, autism is a neurodevelopmental difference. Another thing is, I've seen parents telling me that they think their child has been bewitched.
Yeah, that is also very common.
Yes, so I really want to say this to our parents out there. Autism, honestly, Brenda, we still don't know what really causes autism.
Yeah, true.
We don't know. But research is still going on. There's this learner who, when she's melting down, she used to rip my shirts. Yeah, most of my shirts don't have buttons, Brenda. Courtesy of my beloved Lana. Yeah, this duty, it's a calling. Yeah, special needs education and educators out there, big up to you. You're doing an amazing job. Yeah, that speech therapy is like a paint. When you want to construct a house, do you go to the hardware to buy the paint first, or do you go to the hardware to get the initial things you did for groundwork?
Cement, stones,
ballast and all that. You want to go for paint. Of course you need paint at some point, but it's not an immediate necessity.
Hello beautiful people, and welcome to our first episode of Autism Lifestyle. In this channel, we are going to be getting various insights from professionals, caregivers, parents, and also individuals with autism. I'm your host, Brenda Kawira. I myself am an special needs educator, and today our first guest is an amazing person who is also in the field of special needs education, and I'm going to give him a chance to introduce himself. So without further ado, allow me to introduce him. Karibu sana. Tell us your name, what you do, and we'll continue from there.
Thank you, Brenda, for having me this afternoon. As they say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So this is a very awesome step towards the right direction. My name is Gideon Mawere. I'm a special needs educator with a background in functional educational assessment. I've specialized in emotional and behavioral disorders and currently working with learners with autism and intellectual disabilities in our center along Langata Road. Yeah, that's my brief introduction.
Karibu sana tena. And before we continue, don't forget to subscribe, to like the channel, and also to ring the notification bell so that anytime we have a new episode, you will be the first one to join us. So Gideon, as we start our session, can you kindly briefly tell us how you found yourself into this career system?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Brenda. So my journey in special needs dates back to several years ago. And my desire to be in this space is informed by the need to offer equal opportunities to all learners, regardless of their disabilities. And the reason why I'm in this space, the special needs space, is when I was in my teaching practice some years ago, I realized that when learners are given opportunities, given support, then they make good progress. And for learners with autism, when they received communication interventions, received sensory-based interventions, and after a short time I realized how great progress they'd made. That made me realize that this was the right space I wanted to be in to impact lives and to contribute to my country, Kenya.
Okay. So where exactly in these areas were you in a school, back at home where you grew up? Are these places that you met these learners or these individuals with disabilities, or at what point did you interact with them?
Yeah, again, that's a very important question, but again, very relative. Honestly speaking, I only came to interact with autism when I was in my campus days, some years ago. But it's true, when I was in my primary school, I could see my colleagues, my former classmates, really struggling with handwriting, with communication, with handing in the assignments at the right time, and struggling with the emotional regulations. So from that time onset, from my early years in school, I realized that my colleagues, my fellow classmates were facing these challenges. But some did drop out, very unfortunate. And when I joined high school, I also experienced the same. There was a lot of academic pressure. Many of my former classmates some of them were really struggling, others were really gifted and talented. They were doing so well in academics. And then that's when I got the inspiration to start working with, or rather, pursue that career path of special needs education. And I've never regretted that decision. Yeah.
Because I believe what you've told us that you are seeing your peers and your classmates struggling a lot. I believe most of us here, we have had experiences where our classmates are being termed jinga in quotes because they are unable to perform maybe in class. So without really knowing where the problem is coming from. So it's a good thing that we have you in this career path.
Yeah.
And I believe we are striving to make a difference just one step at a time.
Yes.
Yeah, so you are now in campus.
Yeah.
Have you decided, were you told this is what you're going to be studying in campus? Or you went in campus knowing that you'll start doing special needs, or how did you find yourself there?
So I started doing more research on special needs education and the support services children with special needs or learners with special needs are given.
Yeah.
And by that time, when I was doing my research in Kenya, mostly, if I use this term, traditional disabilities. So there is visual impairments, there is hearing impairments, there is those who are deaf, blind, and so on and so forth. Those are the most pronounced categories of special needs and disabilities. And then I also did more work around that, and I came to realize that some of my classmates were just communicating fine. The only challenge that they were having was people were not understanding what they were saying, or rather, their communication. So that's when I bumped into that word, autism, and it drew my curiosity. I did more work on it, and I realized what it really meant. And joining campus, I went straight. I was from day one. I wanted to do something relating to autism, relating to how to support learners with learning disabilities from day one. So in my school, in our school, that is, they didn't have some categories of special needs. So that's how I found myself doing emotional and behavioral disorders, autism.
Okay. Yeah. And why did you lean on emotional and behavioral difficulties? Well, you have said the most pronounced disabilities were the visual impairment, hearing impairment, physical impairment. So did you really understand that term, emotional and behavioral difficulties?
Yes. At the beginning, I had gaps in my understanding, but towards the end, I did understand what I was really doing, and so that's my area, emotional and behavioral disorders, just from the word emotion. So there are children or learners, or people who really struggle with emotions, emotional regulation. Then there are also learners who also struggle with behavior. So they present with challenging behaviors. And it could range from a very small issue to a very serious issue that even can warrant police attention. So those challenging behaviors. And as you will notice that learners with autism also present with challenging behaviors when their needs are not addressed. Actually, everyone, when our needs are not addressed, more so the basic needs are not addressed, sensory needs are not addressed, we tend to communicate it through our behaviors.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is very true. So what was your first, tell us about your first experience of handling now a learner. You are in school, you have learned the theory part of it. Now you are in the field, the practical bit of it. Yeah. What was your very, very first experience?
My very first experience was some years ago. I just finished school and I was given this enormous responsibility to start a special needs unit in a school called Kasarani Junior School. So I was the pioneering special needs teacher there.
That's a very big opportunity.
Yes. And I was so green, Brenda. I had about 7 learners, and majority of them, around 4 of them, were presenting with signs of autism spectrum disorders. The reason why I'm saying I was suspecting that because they didn't have official diagnosis for ASD. That's something that, again, we have a challenge in. We tend to label children without proper evaluation. So I could see those signs of autism. And maybe even before we continue, our listeners out there, our viewers, might ask themselves, what is this thing you're talking about?
What you're talking, you think autism, ASD.
Yes, yes. So just like this tool here, there's this traditional stool we normally have. It has 3 supports or 3-legged stool. So I may use that analogy to explain what autism is. So autism is like a triad, like that stool with 3 legs. So on one leg there's communication. So autism basically affects how somebody communicates their needs, basic needs, and every other thing that they are communicating. So there's communication. So in communication there is expressive and receptive communication. So expressive communication, you'll find a person or a learner with autism spectrum disorder really having challenges with speech, production of speech. Or if the speech is there, but how the speech is produced is out of the norm. And then there's also receptive language. They might be very verbal. They might communicate their needs. But them understanding information could be a challenge. And then there's the second leg of that stool, what we call inflexibility of thought. So people with autism spectrum disorders will struggle with transitions. So in a typical day in a nursery school, you'll find a learner, you've taken them for maybe it's break time, they're playing in the field, and then now break is over, you want them to go back to class. And most learners with autism will struggle with that transition. They'll like, but can't you see I'm still playing? Why do you want me to stop this and get into class? So they'll struggle with transitions. They'll have some rigidity in routines. Once they've established a routine, they religiously stick to that routine. So that's what we call inflexibility of thought. It also comes with things like repetitive behaviors, like echolalia. So maybe I'll say, hi Brenda, and then you respond again, hi Brenda. So that could be the immediate repetition, verbal repetition, or a delayed verbal repetition. So like I'd say, you look beautiful, and then 30 minutes later they repeat the same thing. So there's that repetitive behavior, and it can be verbal, it can be through motor, so like they can even imitate, it's called echopraxia. And there is also that flapping. Some will want to steam, we call them self-stimulating behavior. So some will be flapping, some will be laughing, just enjoying themselves in their spaces or spaces. And then the third part of the leg will be social interaction. So persons with autism spectrum disorders do struggle so much with social interactions. So if it's let's say a small kid, what's the main goal or the main work of a kid? Is to play. Right? So you will find them not engaging in appropriate play, if I may use that term. You expect kids to cooperate, have that cooperative play of sharing and all that, but learners with or children with autism spectrum disorders, most of the time they love playing alone. So they enjoy their solo play or remaining aloof, if may use that term. So that's social interaction. For a school-going kid, you expect them to build and maintain interpersonal relationships. For a person with autism spectrum disorders, they'll really struggle building and sustaining interpersonal relationships. So you might ask them, Brenda, who is your best friend? And then literally they can't figure out who is their best friend because they don't have a best friend. But the good thing is that with social skill training, they can be taught on how to choose friends or make friends. Yeah, so basically that's autism. So it's that stool with 3 legs. The first leg, communication, so language processing, and then the social interaction. And just as mentioned, there is inflexibility of thought, restrictive, repetitive behaviors.
That's a very good explanation. Actually, I've also learned some new words from you today. So now you have given us the true meaning of autism, what it entails and everything. So back to now our school.
Yes.
You have been given the mandate to start now a unit.
Yes.
You are starting to receive kids now.
Yes.
So what was the interaction or what happened now from there?
I can't lie to you, Brenda. At the beginning, it was so difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. You were still green.
I was really overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I remember calling my former lecturer, telling her that I've got this job now, and I don't know, I'm drowning. I don't know how to help these learners.
Okay, if I may cut you short, so how many kids did you have in
At the beginning, we only had 10. And then, I think after 2 weeks, word went around that there's a teacher who is now working with special needs learners, and my class expanded to 15.
And were you the only professional there?
Yes, I was the only one. We're just getting started. And back to your question, it was really challenging at the beginning. So about 4 learners were presenting with those symptoms of autism, just like I mentioned earlier. And then there were 2 with symptoms of learning disability, and then there was another learner with cerebral palsy. So it was a mixed group.
So not all of them were literally on the autism spectrum?
No, not really.
So, okay.
Yeah, so my first duty was to talk to the administration, encourage them to coalesce with the parents to take their children for assessments. Because again, when an appropriate assessment has not been done, it's like you are driving without lights. So you are bound to
just knock your car anywhere.
Yes, get into an accident or something. So some parents did respond, took their children for further evaluation. I also did my own observations, and from then developed IPs. And it was so difficult because, again, I'm working with so many children.
Yeah, I can imagine. 15 and you're alone.
Yes, I'm alone, and I have to plan for all these children. I have to differentiate their learning. They are in different learning spaces. Some were just no, actually in the entire group there was none who was an active learner. Most of them were still in the engagement phase. Yeah, a lot of guidance, a lot of you need to support them. You need to show them even how to handle the pencils and all the stationaries they are about. So that was really challenging. But towards the end of the term, the administration did hire some paraprofessionals to help me with feeding, because we had 2 learners who had cerebral palsy. So I had to feed them. I had to mind the rest.
Yeah.
So it was very practical for the school to really
And more
hire
staff
a paraprofessional to help me with the feeding program, feeding them during snack time, and also help me with the toileting and all that. So those were some of the challenges. Yes.
So after that, now you are still green. Actually, I believe that was a very nice platform to start getting experiences.
Yeah, it was a moment of learning for me.
Yes.
I really learned a lot. Yeah, it made me tough.
Yeah.
It made me, before then I didn't even know how to change diapers and all that. But today I'm a pro.
Right now.
Yeah, I can really work with the learners who are still not yet toilet trained and train them on toileting and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So how did you find yourself now where you are at currently?
Yeah, again, it's a long journey. It's a long journey.
You can just shorten it just briefly.
Yeah, so after my initial assignment at Karsarani, I moved on to homeschooling, and there I was working with two amazing learners who had official diagnosis for dyslexia, and they were really amazing. I worked with them for a year. We were doing homeschooling again with a lot of challenges. Homeschooling is tough, but also good. At the same time, there are pros and cons for it. And then after that, I moved on to where I'm currently stationed. Yeah, in the school I'm teaching. It's called First Steps Intervention. It's along Langata Road. Yeah, around Bomas of Kenya.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you still handling all learners with various disabilities or just one?
That's a very good question again. Yes and no. Yes, because I also volunteer for different organizations. Like I'm a member of Special Education Professionals. And in Special Education Professionals, we do outreaches and consultations in Kajiado, Kiambu, Murang'a, and even Machakos and Makueni counties. So when we go to the field, we do receive learners from all backgrounds.
Okay.
So yeah, so in that context, I still do see learners who have physical impairments like cerebral palsy. There is a rare condition that I encountered when I was in the field. It's called osteogenesis imperfecta. Yeah, and so many other beautiful terms.
I believe that is, how do you call it? The bones, they crack easily.
Yes, brittle bones.
Yeah, brittle bones, yeah.
Yeah, so I still do that. From time to time, I do go out there to serve Kenya, and we do assessments, we do consultations with parents, we advise them, and we help their children.
Yeah.
No, in the fact that in my Monday to Friday work, I only work with learners with autism and intellectual disabilities.
Okay.
Yes.
So you've told us a lot, and even in that, what you've told us, we have been able to capture one or two experiences that you have encountered.
Yes.
So if you can just remember one incident that happened to you in one of your experiences, can you kindly just share with us so that people can really understand what you face, what professionals face when handling these learners?
You really want one?
Yeah, you can give us
because
as much as you can.
I have a lot to share in terms of my experiences, my daily encounters with these amazing children.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, working with a learner and see them improve, make improvements. Like this one learner, I started working with her when she was so green she didn't know letter sounds. Letter sound correspondence and all that. She didn't know how to write, and by that time she was 9 years. She has autism spectrum disorders, and she was ground zero. And then we started working on literacy. on math, number work, and today she's doing grade level activities, and sooner she'll be sitting for her checkpoints exam to continue with learning. She's doing the international curriculum, British curriculum.
Oh, that is good.
So when I see that, I feel so happy because, yeah, there is a lot. It was so intensive, and it was not just me. Actually, in our space, in this space of special needs, you can't shoulder that burden alone.
Yeah.
You need to work as a team. So like that specific learner was receiving daily occupational therapy geared towards graphomotor skills. Graphomotor just has to do with
writing.
Writing and all that. She was also receiving speech therapy at least twice every week, and it was very intensive. She was also receiving behavior support, so behavior management. She was presenting with some challenging behavior, so we had to modify those behaviors. So it was really intensive, and it really paid. So that's an amazing story, living testament that with tailored intervention, early intervention, they do make good progress. Plus many other success stories I've witnessed out there.
So there is hope.
There is hope. There is hope. With intensive intervention, they will surely make progress. The outcome will be awesome. That's for sure. Yes. Now on to the bad ones. So I've been beaten. There was this one time when one of my learners, it was during break time, and he was having his snack, and I don't know what irritated him, and he was drinking tea, and for whatever reason he decided to pour this tea onto my face. And when we analyzed what was really going on to tailor behavior support to him, we realized that he had emotional meltdown, and it's something that started days ago, and that was the time he erupted, being he really displayed that challenging behavior at that time, like literally pouring hot
tea. And
onto
you see,
my
I
face.
believe these are some of the things that are happening out there. But really people do not understand why they are even happening.
I thank God that I was not injured whatsoever. It was God. I didn't get burnt.
And you understood.
I understood. There is also this learner when, Brenda, there's a difference between, when you're talking about behaviors, there's a difference between, and actually most, if not all, learners with autism spectrum disorders, they, from time to time, they'll struggle with tantrums and meltdowns. So for a tantrum, we have a solution to it. Most of the time we ignore because it's attention-seeking behavior. But for a meltdown, we really tread carefully. So like in our school, we have select spaces where learners can go and relax. When they're having those moments, those episodes when they're melting down. And we know, because meltdown is like a tsunami. Can a tsunami happen this afternoon?
No.
I don't think so. The weatherman will tell us ahead of time, will tell us that people who are in the lowlands, please move to the highlands, so that you don't disadvantage yourself when the tsunami comes. So I'll compare a meltdown to a tsunami. Yes. So we'll see the tsunami is coming. We'll see that the land is about to melt down, and from there we'll start making arrangements. We become proactive. So we have our spaces where they resort to when they are melting down to self-regulate and even co-regulate with a therapist or even a special needs teacher.
So what are some of these signs that you can use to tell that a child is maybe having or about to have a meltdown or a shutdown?
Yeah, that's a very important question, Brenda, because if you make that categorization, then it will help you or inform you on how to intervene. So a tantrum is just like the child is acting out because maybe their need hasn't been met. So they will not use their words. They'll typically throw themselves down. Yes, and cause a scene. So that's a tantrum.
So the way we see children
yes,
lying
and
down,
any child,
screaming.
even adults do
they throw
have
tantrums.
those episodes of tantrums. Yeah, when things don't go their way, they might do that. Yeah, we are social beings, things do happen.
Yeah.
But a meltdown could be as a result of compounded sensory overload. Like there's too much noise. Children with autism spectrum disorders also struggle with sensory sensitivities. Those sensitivities, so they might be hyper or hyposensitive to light, to sound. Those basic things those small things that we ignore really matter to them. How they process that information is very, very crucial to them. So a buzz from a filament bulb or whatever is enough to spook them. Too much light or less of it, or even a touch, texture, all that sensory input really impacts them in how they process it. So it could be as a result of that sensory overload. Everyone is talking, there's a car honking out there, some are laughing, giggling, so they process all that, and as a result there's an overload and they melt down. It could also be as a result of there's a problem in their life. Maybe there's an anxiety that's compounding. There's a fear that they've been having for quite some time. There's a doubt or something. So all that compounding together, and in the long run they melting down. So how do you tell a meltdown is about to happen? A meltdown cannot happen like instantly.
All of a sudden,
you will see the signs. So what are some of the signs? Some learners will withdraw. Others will be agitated. So some learners will externalize, others will internalize. Externalize means that you'll see from their physical reaction, they are pacing down, they are walking up and down. That's when they mimic, or rather they echo a lot. I mentioned earlier, echolalia. So they repeat words and all that. You see them now flapping in a faster pace and all that. You see that agitation.
They're so uneasy.
Yeah, uneasy, yes. And then there are those who are withdrawn. So if they like engaging in a particular task, they'll withdraw. So those are some of the signs you need to pick. And whatever happens to person X could be totally different from person Y. So you must understand the individual. And from there, you know that person X will have a meltdown today. So what do? You become proactive, you anticipate. Good. So like in our school, we have our safe space where they can go and relax. Some learners will, if they enjoy bouncing up and down the trampoline, we take them there to calm them down. Yeah, so we start preparing early, because if you don't, the tsunami will sweep you. And speaking of that, so there's this learner who, when she's melting down, she used to rip my shirts. Yeah, most of my shirts don't have buttons, courtesy of my beloved Lana. Yeah, so, and during that moment, she even doesn't know what she's doing, because after the meltdown, she's so calm and quiet, and it's like nothing happened. So another thing, when a learner is melting down, a child is melting down, stop using a lot of words. Yeah, direct them to a safe space so that they can't harm themselves or others, and let them calm down. because they are not even processing what you are saying. Yes, so those are some of the challenges: being beaten, literally being hit, being slapped, being there are some of them who spat on your faces and all that. They spit on you. Some even they do a lot of things. Yeah, but gladly enough, I've grown.
Yeah.
And I know how to handle that, so that I'm not beaten, I'm
It's
not
a
slapped,
lot.
I'm not smacked and all that. Yeah, every day, every moment, we try our best not to get into that space of injuries and so on and so forth.
And we love them regardless, because that is why you're here.
Yes, again, learning moment. So
Yes.
it's been a while since I was beaten and all that. Yeah, so I think it's a learning moment. At the beginning, you will be overwhelmed, you will not know what to do, and things like biting and hitting will happen to you.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
I know many are relating to whatever that you are saying, and some of them even quit.
Yes.
They were unable to cope.
Yes.
It happens.
Many of my parents and people I interact with normally tell me, you must be a very patient guy.
And very strong and understanding.
Yeah, you must be very patient. So, this duty, it's a calling. Yeah, special needs education and educators out there, big up to you. You're doing an amazing job. Yeah, it needs patience. It needs a lot of patience. Even Brenda, I know you are very so patient. You can't do this if you lack patience.
Yeah, it's true. You cannot. It's hard. So before we even started our session, I remember you told me you have ever been outside the country, and you were able to experience special needs now outside Kenya. So can you just give us a brief on how that went?
Yeah, so sometime in 2022, I was invited for a talk. It was like a symposium in Arusha. So we went to this therapy clinic. They were basically doing occupational therapy, assessments and therapy services. And we were just talking about neurodiversity. Yes. So that was a very refreshing moment in my career. I've also been to Dar es Salaam for conferences around autism. Yes. And I have friends who are starting a school in Kigali, so we went to sightsee, and I'm so glad that they're making progress with that. Yes, and I want to tell you that in East Africa we are doing so well. Kenya, we are doing so well. We are really doing so well, and I mean it, because from my experience, we still have a long way to go as a community, East Africa community, but as Kenya, we are miles ahead in terms of special educational services.
So were you able to interact with the learners with special needs from those countries?
Yes, yes.
And how they are being handled, and how they are also being handled in Kenya. Would you say there's a big difference?
Not quite much. In terms of, I did encounter even educators out there, therapists, and other service providers. And there's a common theme on resources. So we have scarce resources, because for us to effectively support learners with autism, we need resources. Because just like I mentioned, they struggle with communication and all that, and we've seen from research, and actually that's an evidence-based practice, that when you are teaching a learner who has communication difficulties, use communication boards, use visual schedules and timetables and all that. So sometimes we don't have the resources to produce all that material. I've seen teachers lamenting about that when I was in Dar es Salaam. There's also a need for retraining and training, actual training, because not so many are trained in special needs. And actually in autism spectrum disorders,
Yeah.
many teachers don't know what it is actually. So anytime they encounter a learner with special needs or that learner with autism spectrum disorders, they'll call you. Even something that they can intervene promptly, that's not my area, call Brenda.
Come on.
Yeah. So I think going forward, we need all the government or stakeholders need to come together to ensure that there is continuous professional development around autism awareness and teaching and learning.
Yeah, true. We have a long way to go.
Yes.
But I will also say that we are somewhere.
Yes.
So we are also talking about, we are getting some of the challenges that you're encountering. And so is there any other challenge that you might want to add, especially the one now that is facing parents directly? Because I believe we as the professionals, we are able to handle these learners like for a short period of time. But the parents are the ones now handling these learners for a longer period of time. So what are some of the challenges that you're facing from the parent side?
That's an important question again, Brenda. So, a learner or any school-going kid, it's either they are in school or they are home. So, as much as we are trying to advocate for these learners, it's very important to ensure that there is proper home support or a home program. And that's something that we've really worked on with the special education professionals when we go out there for outreach and for consultations. We do guide parents on how to be with their kids at home, supporting their kids at home. Even at Kise, they do that so much, even when they have workshops and retreats and how do you call them? Outreach. Yeah, home support. Very important. So one thing that I think we need to work on is on that home support, because if intervention is done, but there's a disconnect between the school and home, then we won't, or the parents won't feel that impact. And that's where their frustration begins. They say, I'm paying a lot of money for speech therapy, a lot of money for occupational activities, but I'm not seeing any significant change. Why? Because we are not supporting these learners effectively at home. So how can we bridge that? By having open communications between the school and the home. So parents must be invited for conferences, for IEP meetings. IEP is individualized education plan that is used for teaching learners with special needs, including autism spectrum disorders. So when you invite them, you explain to them, these are the goals we are going to work on. And from the goals, you deduce the objectives. So in the objectives, those objectives must be very specific. If it's toileting, let's say, Brenda, your child is not yet toilet trained and they are 10 years old. And at the same time, they cannot maybe do direct computation like add 2-digit numbers, let's say 14 plus 23. You have learning addition, advanced addition, and toileting. What will be your priority?
Personally, as a parent, I think I will focus more on the toileting.
On the toileting, because that's a
basic need.
Yes, that's something that a basic skill that every human being should have for their own independence, for their own hygiene and safety. So that's when you invite those parents and you have those discussions. And then you say, these are the specific goals, the specific objectives we are going to work on for this duration. And they should be things that are observable, like the actions that they can be measured, and you must have that time. Because you can't do it forever. You need to have time limits. It should be time bound. So after having those objectives, you start working on those skill areas. And whatever is happening in school should also happen at home. That way, the learner will make significant progress and the parent will be so involved because we are so calling for parental involvement. So I think that's something that I've really noticed. It's when I was in Kasarani, I was not so much I really called for IEP meetings, individualized education plan meetings, but I was not very successful. But I hope things have really changed. I hope they are now having those meetings because they are not for PR. They are very crucial. Parents must call for IEP meetings, and parents also have the right to call for a review at any given moment. They are feeling that maybe the objectives are out of the way or they are not working or we've worked them, now we need to move on. The parent has that right. And we have to remind our parents that that's their right. They can always call for reviews. Yes.
I think that's important for your parents to understand and know. So, like I said, I'm also a special needs educator.
Yes.
And I know and I experience a lot of parents coming and saying, I had this, one of my friends told me that I need to do this and this so that maybe my child can talk. For those children who maybe they have delayed milestones like walking, you hear, I was told I should take these vitamins so that my child can walk. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's very good. Let me make it clear. There's a notion that autism is a disease that should be cured with some vitamins, with some medicine, with some surgery. Honestly, Brenda, we still don't know what really causes autism.
Yeah, true.
We don't know. But research is still going on. For now, what we know is that genetics might play a part. We don't know the percentage. And we also know that environment also plays a part. It exacerbates those symptoms. For example, Brenda, a kid born and raised in Lokichar. You've been to Lokichar?
No, but I wish to go there.
Yes, it's sparsely populated. So you'll have this home and then several miles you have the next home and so on and so forth. And then a child born and raised in Nairobi, a place like Pipeline. You know Pipeline?
Yeah, I know Pipeline.
It's highly populated, right? These two children are at risk for communication delays. One is in Lokichar, the other one is in Pipeline.
Even the one in Pipeline?
Yes, both are at risk for communication problems. So you tell me, between these two, who will really, really struggle with communication and social interaction?
Well, I will say the one in Lokichar.
The one in Lokichar. Yeah, because there are no children whom he or she can play with. But in Pipeline, children are in plenty. They can get along and learn how to share, learn from their play. And from their interactions, language can be developed. So that's the same. That's environment for you. So environment exacerbates or propels those symptoms. So if a learner or a child was at risk for communication or at risk for autism, and the environmental setting is not that good in terms of, it doesn't support communication, it's not enriched for social skills and all that, those autistic symptoms and signs will show. And they'll be very present. Yes.
And what do you have to say? Because currently where we are at, we have a lot of people living in estates, homes. So they are really enclosing their children in spaces, the enclosed spaces. So would you say that that one can also exacerbate the symptoms?
Environment. Children need play. They can play alone, but they also benefit from playing with others, their peers. So I'd encourage parents to seek for social places that children can really practice or experiment their language skills. Yes. So if you are living in a gated community or estate, you need to take your kid out for recreational activities, because that's where you'll find other children playing, and from there they'll be able to do that. If it's you're a church person, you can take them for Sunday school or other initiatives that involve children. And back to your question, that question, people believe that autism is a disease. Some do believe, and that's a huge myth that I want to debunk today. Autism is not a disease that needs to be cured with a vitamin or be cured with a certain medicine. No, autism is a neurodevelopmental difference. Yes.
And there are a lot of parents who always ask that question, actually. I'm glad you have mentioned it.
Yes.
They come to you, and once you have just maybe assessed their child, and they have gone through all the assessment procedures, and they have the diagnosis of autism, the first question for most parents is, mtoto wangu atapona, will my child be cured?
Yes. So you need to be very categorical with them, tell them the truth, that with structured intervention, gets toward improving their areas of concern, because every child has strengths.
Yeah, true.
Keep on working on their strengths and also working on their areas of concern.
Yeah.
So if the area of concern is communication, tailor your intervention towards communication. And you have to remind your parents that with early intervention, early intensive intervention, the prospects are so awesome. The outcome will be good for sure. There will be significant improvement. So another thing is, I've seen parents telling me that they think their child has been bewitched.
Yeah, that is also very common.
Yes, so I just want to say this to our parents out there. Autism cannot be caused by witchcraft. Witchcraft does not cause autism. What causes autism? I've just mentioned. Environment plays a part.
The genetics as well.
But we are still not yet sure, and research is still going on.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Not who did what.
The problem is already here.
Yes, so that's not true. Another one will be, autism is caused because of poor parenting.
Yeah.
No. Autism is not caused by poor parenting. Yes, it's again a neurodevelopmental condition.
Yeah, because I believe we find parents with a lot of them are frustrated. They even hiding them from the society because of that myth that it is caused by poor parenting. So I think that is a very big calamity that is facing parents out there.
Yes.
Especially those parents who have these children. So they are also being forced to hide them.
Yes. Yeah, so
and
I
it's
think
sad.
that's why we need such like sensitization.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
Advocate for parents, advocate for these individuals, these children who have autism, and so many things look like autism. Yeah. So today you walk around and then somebody tells you, I think that's autistic. That's why we are encouraging parents to take their children for assessment. Yeah. Take them for evaluation and trust in professionals. That's another huge deficit we are having with our parents. Some do not trust professionals. If you do not trust a professional, then how do you expect them to do their work? From the onset, you won't approve their work. So we need to trust professionals. And professionals out there, be professional.
Yes, don't give false hope.
Yes, don't. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You tell them the truth. Yeah.
More than your weight. Yes, and just do. Be within your boundaries. Be within your boundaries. So another myth that I can recall is that autistic people are very smart, very intelligent. Yeah, it's very true. Some autistic people are very smart. I'm a great fan of Dr. Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
Temple Grandin is living with autism spectrum disorder. But she's done amazingly well in her professional work, in advocating for the rights of people with disabilities, not just autism, but even people with disabilities. She's authored and published several books, published in reputable journals and so on. Very smart. So that's a myth that all autistic people are smart. So I want to debunk that and say there is something called individual difference. Even the typical children are not the
all
same.
Of them are the same level.
Yes. So that's why we are saying it's a spectrum. So in this spectrum, there are those who will have strong academic capabilities, and there are those who will not enjoy that. So, but again, there is a chance for them to improve, a chance for them to be given the opportunity, the access to education, and for them to be encouraged to do to their level best, to be stimulated to do to their level best. So that's something that I've encountered. And in the same breath, there are those who also believe that those with autism are dumb. They are not smart.
So some believe they're smart, others believe they're dumb.
I also want to debunk that not all autistic people, persons with autism, are dumb.
That's why it's
there are those who are very gifted and talented.
Yes. You know, on that note, I remember when I was in school, when I was still learning, I was also still green in the field of autism. I had a cousin who was also studying medicine. So we were having that discussion, and she mentioned that she would love to have a child with autism. So asking her, why are you saying that? So she said that she knows that children with autism are very smart. I think that was around that time where The Good Doctor was coming out. It was very famous.
Yes.
So from that context, she told me that children with autism are very smart, and she wouldn't mind having one with autism. So I think it's something that is out there, and people are really believing it. So it's a good thing that you have put it out there.
Yeah.
And these children are different.
Very different.
They have individual potential. Some have challenges here, but strengths here.
Yeah.
So it's good to balance both of them because they all have potential. Yeah, so you mentioned a lot about intervention here, early intervention. So what are some of these interventions, and what is it really that you're talking about?
Good question again. So intervention is the things we do.
Yeah.
We've made a discovery that this is the situation. So we have to act.
Yeah.
So the actions we do after making that discovery, that's what intervention is. So just add the word early to it. So you don't need to tarry with it. You don't need to mark time with it. You need to act promptly. You've made that discovery that my child presents with autism spectrum disorder. And then you act promptly. You don't wait for another year or 3 years. Maybe they'll overcome this and all that. They won't overcome without support. So that's where early intervention kicks in. So for learners with autism spectrum disorders, like I mentioned earlier, Brenda, they present with communication challenges.
Yeah.
So some, not all, will benefit from speech and language therapy. Again, some, not all.
Yeah.
It's not compulsory. It depends with the individual communication needs. Again, I also mentioned that learners with autism spectrum disorders also struggle with sensory sensitivities. They have those sensitivities. So, like I mentioned, there is hyper responsiveness and hyper responsiveness. Some learners would love to be so messy. Yeah, I've seen children who love being messy, and they'll play with water and
actually, most of them love water.
Yeah, and then there are those who are very, very they don't want to get dirty.
They are clean and organized.
They touch some mud and they'll be wiping it on their garments, their clothing. They really love being clean.
Yeah.
So again, that's what we are saying the spectrum is all about. There are those who are hyper sensitive, there are those who are hypo sensitive, even to touch.
Yeah.
There are those who really love to be
Hugging.
embraced, to be hugged tightly. There are those who disdain that. They don't like being touched. So you must just find out what your child really likes and dislikes and work around that. So because of sensory issues, sensory processing challenges, they benefit so much from occupational therapy, specifically sensory integration therapy. And that can be done by any competent occupational therapist. So benefit from sensory integration. Maybe in a given session we can discuss the individual therapies that these learners do have.
Yeah.
And then I also mentioned that they might present with some challenging behaviors. So again, they benefit from a philosophy or a concept, a framework called applied behavior analysis. So they were working with a competent behaviorist to remediate these challenging behaviors, to modify the challenging behaviors. So I've mentioned speech therapy for some, not all. Occupational therapy, behavior support, very crucial for them. And then now there's also the other bit for academic support. Yes, and because they might also struggle with some life skills, they'll also benefit from activities of daily living. So they are trained on on grooming, on toileting,
feeding,
and all the life skills that benefit them and make them independent. So they benefit from that. There's also this question: when I'm wearing my cap of an assessor, when I'm doing assessments, and then we've made that discovery that the child might need communication intervention, but they are also delayed in these life skills, in these activities of daily living skills. And then the parent will say, I want speech therapy. There's that push and pull.
Actually, most of them, when they are coming for the assessment, they are coming for that specific
their
therapy,
sole goal is to get
therapy.
speech therapy, because they can't do speech therapy unless they've been assessed. The child has been assessed. So their end game is speech therapy. And it's true, it's crucial for us to remind them that we'll have to do that speech therapy at some point. But we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize these therapies. If your child is 4 years and above and not toilet trained, cannot button
even the shirt,
they cannot groom themselves. They still depend on people to do everything for them, even feeding. Will you start with that speech or start with those other things that will really support the speech itself? Yeah, so I always love sharing this analogy with my parents. That speech therapy is like a paint. When you want to construct a house, do you go to the hardware to buy the paint first? Or do you go to the hardware to get the initial things you did for groundwork?
Cement, stones,
ballast and all that. You won't go for paint. Of course you need paint at some point, but it's not an immediate necessity.
True.
For you to build your house.
True.
And if you go to Mudukingi or any other paint shop, paint hardware, you come with your paint, you'll be painting here.
Yeah, true.
Painting here, literally painting here. So what do? You start
the foundation,
with the groundwork, foundation. And this foundation the child must have attention, good attention for them to have speech therapy. Any speech therapist will tell you this, any occupational therapist will tell you this. For a child to benefit from speech and language activities, they must have some pre-language skills, some pre-speech skills, including they are able, like right now I'm talking to you and there's a lot going on. You're nodding your head and all that, you're imitating, and there's non-verbal communication that many learners with autism spectrum disorder will have challenge with non-verbal communication. So where do we build that? During the occupational therapy activities. So we build on those listening skills. You must be able to listen. For you to be given an instruction, verbal instruction, or an augmented instruction, you must pay attention. You must have that listening skill. You must attend.
Even the eye contact.
Eye contact, all that. You must settle down. All that is done by an occupational therapist, sensory integration, what we are talking about, so that the child is ready, and when the child is ready, now the child can benefit from speech and language therapy. Now you can paint your house because you now have the structure, you've done your lintel and everything,
and it's just finishing.
Speech therapy. So I always remind my parents about that.
It's good you've mentioned that, because a lot of parents, they come to you and they tell you, my child does not have any problem.
Yes.
The only problem is speech. And again, it's when we are on that point, it's also good to mention that exposing our kids to a lot of screen time is also affecting their speech.
True.
And not talking to our children is also affecting their speech. Enclosing them in enclosed spaces is also affecting their speech. So speech therapy on its own is not the way to go to make a child to speak. There's a lot around it. So like you mentioned, as much as we are doing an intervention measure on one side, we also need to make sure even at home the immediate environment of the child is also conversant or corresponded to whatever you are doing.
Yeah, so speaking from experience, I was mentioning some of therapies and services that children with autism spectrum disorder will benefit from. The ones that they can really benefit from. We do find out that nutrition also plays a part as environment. Nutrition, what we eat, what we feed our souls, what we feed our mouths and everything really affects our overall output in terms of behavior. That's true to any human being. Even if you take a lot of sugar right now, you love that sugar rush.
Sugar rush,
so, true. Or if you take alcohol, children don't take alcohol. But if you take alcohol, it will
your judgment.
So that's true. So we also need to work on the nutrition. And the best person to consult for nutrition is a reputable nutritionist. And again, a competent and reputable, board licensed therapist. You can get not nutritionists. You can get them from any reputable hospital. They have a registered nutritionist. At Kise, there's a nutritionist. Go seek for their services. They'll do their assessment, and then they'll be able to plan, make a plan for your child. Because nutrition also is very crucial. And I always advise my parents, just take balanced diet. Avoid or cut down on refined foods, added sugar, all that. Ringos.
It's very common.
Ringo Nation. Cut down on that, so that children are eating real foods. Yes. Oh, Brenda, have you ever seen a lorry carrying matundas, carrying foods, going to Coca-Cola company in an industrial area?
No.
So basically, whatever they are producing or manufacturing there are synthetic. They are chemicals that, when ingested, can cause some imbalance. Make us behave differently, or rather not concentrate, or rather become hyperactive. So we need to mind what we are eating. And I always encourage my parents, go for real foods. You'll never go wrong with real foods.
Real food,
So nutrition, very important. That's very important. I wanted to make that very clear. go for nutritional evaluation for your child to be assisted or supported, because again we'll find some children being allergic to certain products, foods and all that. So you can only evaluate that or know better
from a nutritionist.
From a professional like a nutritionist.
Yeah. That is very good information that you have given us. I'm sure most of us, we have learned a lot of things. I myself have been able to learn new things from you. And it was amazing to have you here today. So as we come to an end of our session, what message would you give the professionals out there and the teachers and also the parents out there?
I want to remind our parents that they are very strong. Whatever they are going through in terms of raising these children, it's a very enormous and noble task. They need to keep on going. They should not give up. You cannot give up. They cannot give up. They need to continue with the same spirit. To my fellow educators out there, just know that the work you are doing is much appreciated, and continue with a good job. To assessors like Brenda, continue with a good job. Let's continue supporting these children, advocating for their rights, and I believe that the future is bright for all children of Kenya, not just those with autism spectrum disorders, all children. And it's our duty and responsibility to ensure that there is equal opportunity to everyone, regardless of their disability or abilities.
Yeah.